And to Aristotle, there's not much of a difference. It's a skill over time with practice, which becomes easier and is part of who you are. So, good point. Although Aristotle would have a very clear answer to this. And again, I think for me, his biology background, not even background, he invented biology. He's really the father of a lot of our biological ideas. But in any case, he would say that if you are born into a criminal family, for example, and you're taught to steal and taught to lie and taught all of these things, that temporarily, of course, you can thrive and you can grow. When you grow up, you become an adult and you have these skills and you've actually perfected them. Let's say you're a really, really skillful criminal. He's going to say there are certain aspects of that role that are going to undermine your human development. Right? So that just like, if you put an acorn in the ground and you don't give it any water, that's going to impair its growth. If you put a human being in a criminal context where they're taught to deceive, taught to lie, taught to steal, even though they can grow, right, just like a tree can grow, ultimately it's not going to be able to grow fully and become fully excellent as a human being, because human beings need relationships, they need trust, people need to be able to rely on them. And if the skills that you've developed involve lying and stealing from people, eventually your relationships are all going to fall apart and you're going to be lonely and sad. Even if you're not caught by the police, you're just not going to be thriving as a human being. So he would say that it's a really nice point. It's a good challenge to Aristotle. If he just says become skillful, if that's all he says, then you're right. Why not become a skillful criminal? But again, he thinks you want to be skillful at becoming a good human being, a good virtuous human being. That absolutely requires that you be a good friend, be a good citizen, develop healthy, strong relationships with other people, and being a criminal will undermine that. Okay, so someone sort of hinted at that. I think it's the same person who said, this is what should be promoted instead of becoming skillful in things that will not produce optimal satisfaction and healthy excellence. So they're saying Aristotle should recognize that being a criminal is not a good skill. And they've said the way that they would explain it was it doesn't produce optimal satisfaction or healthy excellence. And I would be a little more specific, right? Because it's not really about, being a criminal can bring you lots of satisfaction, but it doesn't bring you healthy excellence, because being wealthy by stealing from other people doesn't make you friends, doesn't give you deep, lasting relationships. It doesn't integrate you into the community. It doesn't build the kind of trust with other people that you need. And so because of the way it undermines social relationships, it undermines human excellence. All right. I love this phrase. When all parts of the self are collaborating together, that is when you become graceful in your personal skill set, and the skill becomes part of who you are. So I just wanted to, a couple of others use that phrase too. I really like that. I'm going to steal that from you and use it in my next semesters. This idea of living gracefully. I think Aristotle would really like that phrase, right? You see someone walking and you say, oh, they have such a graceful walk. Here's someone speaking, they speak so gracefully, right? It's really a mark of excellence. An athlete, well, the highest praise sometimes you can give an athlete is that they make it look so easy. It's so graceful. And I know that. I love basketball. I love watching basketball. And every once in a while, I'll imagine, oh, yeah, well, I think I could probably do that. And then I realize, Adamson, last time you were out, it's ridiculous. You could never do that. Or it would take you 100 years to practice to be that good, right? And that's why you admire these athletes so much, because they trick you into thinking you could do what they're doing. It's so difficult. They're so graceful at it. So I think Aristotle would like that. Is it possible to set the bar too high and cause more harm than good? Yes, yes. So when we talk about the golden mean, of course, that's about avoiding excesses and deficiencies. So this person is asking, can you become, in trying to be virtuous and trying to be excellent, can you get kind of too wrapped up and too obsessed with being excellent? Aristotle would love, he would chuckle at this question. It's a beautiful question, and it reflects his philosophy. Another phrase of his that's famous that I didn't include here is, in all things moderation. In all things moderation. So you bake those brownies, right? And they're still good enough to eat. Moderation. Have one brownie. It's probably enough. Not like Adamson. Don't have 4, right? And I think he would agree to some extent that it's possible for a human being to take his philosophy too seriously, right? Now, you have to be careful there because he really believed in human excellence. He thought that it was important to strive for being the best. But I do think there would be a sense in which you could become stressed out over that and become excessive in your pursuit of virtue. So, think of it, go back to like basketball or playing the guitar or something like that. Like, of course you want to become excellent, but that being stressed out over it actually gets in the way of the relaxation you need to be able to play it with skill. So I think there is a fine line he would recognize. You want to be excellent, but paradoxically, sometimes the best way to be excellent is to chill out a little bit and try to let things flow and not force it. So good question. In his theory, he believes that we form our happiness from the things we do and our habits and actions. Yes, to become good at life, we must excel at our traits. That's right. One thing that strikes me was he stated that to be a good parent, you must be patient, or a good friend, you must be loyal. I agree to disagree. I think since I'm a parent, I had to learn patience, but I, however, do not see myself as a bad parent when I become impatient. So, Aristotle lived before Christianity. So he's not at all influenced by the idea that God is up in heaven watching you, and when you do something wrong says, bad person. So when Aristotle says, without patience you can't be a good parent, he's not looking over your shoulder, ready to pounce, right? Ready to say, bad parent. He's just saying, all parents since the beginning of time have recognized that it's a problem when you're not patient. If you are quick to anger, or you expect your children to learn things and they're slow at learning, which every child is slow at learning by definition, it's going to get in the way of that child's development. So as a parent, your primary role is to protect the child and to help them grow. And if you're not patient with them and you're frustrated, at some point that's going to get in the way of their growth. So this is where the long-term philosophy, I think, makes a whole lot more sense, because he's not sitting over you saying, you were not patient there, so you're a bad parent. He's saying, work at it. Of course you're not going to be perfectly patient. Some people are born with more patience than others, that's fine, but everyone should work at being more patient, along with lots of other things that are going to help their child grow. And don't beat yourself up if you screw up, but don't settle either. Right? Don't just say, well, I'm a good parent, doesn't matter. Because it does matter. It affects your child. So I hope that helps explain his view a little more clearly. This was an interesting comment, and a few others commented, and I'm just going to put my twist on it and leave it there. So someone said, in my opinion, Aristotle was a very wise man. Okay. He tried to show us the obvious. And what this person said is, we are in control. We can manage ourselves. So I want to separate those. Take the second one. Aristotle would say, there's some truth to that we're in control and we can manage ourselves. He would say we're responsible for our actions. And we're rational. We should be able to learn right from wrong. Okay, he'll go that far. But we're not really in control of what excellence is. We have to learn that from our society and from the roles, from the stories that we inherit. And we're not, when we say we manage ourselves, yeah, but more like the way in which an actor manages themselves in trying to become Hamlet. So right now you're playing the role of student, and you're responsible for that, but the role is not yours. The role is there, and you've entered and you've stepped into the role, right? And in stepping into it, you are now responsible for playing it in the proper way. So all of those expectations are not yours. You've entered into those expectations and taken them up, but they're not really yours to manage. Now the other phrase, he tried to show us the obvious. I take that to be an expression of recognition. That, and a lot of you seem to say this, like you recognize that Aristotle has captured something about your life. And I'm hoping all of the theories that you look at certain points seem obvious to you. I heard, and that's why I'm teaching it this way. I want you to see and recognize in the ideas that Aristotle, Kant, Mill, and Gilligan and others articulate. I want there to be these moments where you like two things happen. You say, well, yeah, duh. And then you realize, oh, I guess he really understands me. Like, I'm Aristotle. I'm kind of Aristotle, right? Obvious in that sense. Obvious in that he's touched on something true at a deeper level about you that helps you understand who you are a little bit better. So if that's what you meant to say he showed us the obvious, I'm pleased. Okay, so it's interesting. A lot of you struggled with this idea of excellence. I do not believe he's saying you need to excel in everything you do. That's right. We can't excel in everything we do in life. But more so, to get the best experience and details out of it, one must put everything they have into it. So I think that's right. Look, if you're going to be a lawyer, if that's important to you, then, put yourself into it. And other parts of your life are probably going to suffer a little bit. You may not have enough time for friends and family for a while and other things, but if you put everything you have into it, if you give yourself fully to that role, you can get closer and closer to excellence. And of course that doesn't mean you're failing. If you're not excellent, it means there's just more work to be done. So I like this way of describing it. Okay, so this gets back to an earlier point in a different way. One thing I found interesting was how he mentioned we should try to practice things that are healthy and try to avoid unhealthy things. And then someone talks about their own kind of experiences with this. This is the biological component, right? Or not just biological, but this is the component of development, where you can practice being a criminal, you can practice being a liar, you can practice lots of things. But just because you become skillful doesn't mean that they're ultimately virtuous. It doesn't mean they're ultimately good, which is to say, it doesn't mean they're ultimately going to help you develop into a full human being with the relationships to others that you need. So practicing things that are healthy, not just for you, but for your friends, your family that you're a part of, and trying to avoid unhealthy things. Okay, so this is, I disagree with Aristotle saying that we come into the world we don't come into the world with our own character. We become distinct only when we play roles. I would disagree because I had my daughter. She's always been very short-tempered. My husband's mom says 3 of her kids. He was the quietest one and rarely